lesson number 5. In lesson number 5, we're going to go over 2 half guard passes that Gracie most commonly uses. Our goal from the half guard is going to be to create a tremendous amount of pressure on our opponent's one carotid artery, drive to the quarter guard position, and then secure the mounted position. And then once we're in the mounted position, we're in a very advantageous position to work the cross choke. So all these moves are connected to each other. So starting on this side half guard, and I'm starting on this side half guard because as I covered in lesson number 4, that scoot this way a little bit, that if we're looking to cross our opponent's legs this way, he's going to hip escape this way and give us the half guard on this side. So this is the more common side to get the half guard, and a little bit better because as a whole, your opponent's guard defense to this side is going to be a little bit weaker on the guard defense to this side because everybody shows everything on this side. So people get used to that. So first, I've managed to secure a pretty tight half guard already because of how I've entered it. Now we're going to go over in detail how I'm going to do shoulder pressure, because how I do shoulder pressure and how Hadra does shoulder pressure is a little bit different. It's more of a choke on his carotid artery than it is turning his chin with your shoulder. Here's how I find that most people teach shoulder pressure. They get their arm in and then they drop their shoulder like this. So that's not how I'm going to teach it right now. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to reach my arm as far over as it goes. So I'm going to reach right here. And what that will do is it will provide very good contact with his neck against my bicep. So once I've got that good connection right there, then my arm switches angles and it comes underneath his armpit. Grabs his armpit or his lat, whatever you want to call it. But notice how it's grabbing right here. From this position, I'm going to work to feed the gi to my underhook, to my shoulder pressuring arm. And you really need to understand how critical it is, or how good it is, if you're able to get the gi and feed it to this hand right here. This can take some practice knowing where to open the gi. If you need to stay a little bit heavier, I guess what you can do is triangle your legs, stay heavy so you can kind of look at what you're doing when you undo the gi. It depends how far you are into the match, how difficult it's going to be. Because sometimes, you know, you've been passing the guard, you're in a war, and it's just right there and it's pretty easy. But sometimes it can be kind of difficult. But really learn to recognize how advantageous this is for you. So right here, I feed it underneath and I grab underneath his armpit as much as I can. Now, the 2 passes that we're going to do are in priority. This is priority number 1. From this position, I'm going to look to use my hand as a free tool so his arm will most likely be right here. So I can push up a little bit and circle my head to the ground, forcing my head underneath his armpit like this, right here. If you can get this position is of great advantage to you. Now the 2 half guard passes are very similar, but with slight differences in your leg position. When I get this position, right here with my head underneath his armpit, my leg position is going to be, my right leg is going to come into the high mounted position like this. Now my left leg, go ahead and lock your half guard. My left leg is going to tripod up like this. And notice how it's relatively straight, and I climbed it a little bit higher, but I still kept it straight. And that's going to cause his legs to slide down. Now we'll turn to the opposite side. And I really want to put all of my pressure into his neck. I'm really leaning and I'm causing my shoulder to drive in right on his carotid artery. This is really going to suck for Alex here. So sorry, Alex. So from this position, I put full pressure right here, and I'm going to use my hand on his leg to drive into the quarter guard position right here. Now, this is why this position is so good. Not only am I choking him, but his hand can't be giving me trouble with the knee right here. So from this position, I'm going to be very patient in passing the quarter guard, because he'll hold onto your ankle for dear life. And there's a couple of different ways that you can pass the quarter guard position, but they're all going to revolve around a lot of patience. This isn't a position, if he's holding on for dear life, that you can get out right away. So it's going to incorporate some patience, you'll be pressuring in and walking around like a clock. We'll cover some quarter guard passes in a future lesson. So that's the first of the half guard passes that we're gonna do. The second, same setup. I come in as deep as I can. I grab underneath right here. I work to feed the gi. I grab underneath his armpit like this. Now, I can't seem to get under his arm. Maybe even has like an underhook that really isn't doing much because he's flattened on his ground, but I can't get my head underneath there. So what I'm gonna do is put my head onto the mat, and it's gonna have a slightly different leg position. One of the most common comments I get about Hodger is that his base is so wide and he's so heavy that he can generate weight and pressure that other people can't. And I'm gonna have to disagree with that, because I feel that I, at 155 pounds, could generate a lot of pressure as well just by copying his techniques. So here, the leg position is gonna be this. I'm gonna get up on both my legs and my toes are gonna be pointed in that direction. My head goes on the mat and all of my weight is concentrated on his carotid artery, like this. And this really is a terrible position for your opponent. My hand is out here for base, and from this position, it's the same. I'm gonna work to drive into the quarter guard position right here. Now I work to pass the quarter guard, basically picking up his arm, being patient, pressuring, and finding the angle to bring out my leg and into the mounted position. Now, once you're in the quarter guard position, before we cover the final pass, what I'm gonna do, I've got the gi underneath, I've managed to drive into the quarter guard position. It's gonna be seen on the opposite side. I need to bring my leg all the way up like this when I'm in the quarter guard position. And because he's most likely gonna be holding my shoulder to alleviate some of the pressure that I'm generating, and when I slide it all the way up, I've isolated one of his arms and compromised his ability to defend like common chokes like the Ezekiel choke and the cross choke from the mount. So here are these two techniques demonstrated in a little bit slower than real time. Here, reach deep, grab underneath the lat, feed the gi underneath, grab it on the armpit, circle my head, come underneath. Leg position number one, leg in tight, tripod the leg, go ahead and close your guard. I drive into the quarter guard position and I drive my head, really getting that choke, and then I work to pass the quarter guard. Position number two, reach in all the way, then come underneath. I'm gonna try, feed the gi. I'm gonna try and get the head underneath, but I can't. So I drive my weight all the way this way using my hand for base, and I adjust my leg position here. And I concentrate all my weight on Alex, right on his face and his carotid artery. I push, and I get the quarter guard position. Once I get the quarter guard position, my leg on this side comes as high as I can, isolating my opponent's left arm. So use these two passes and try it out on a partner and have them adjust your neck pressure. Most likely, once you try this a few times on some of your partners at the gym, you'll probably never have them as a partner again because you'll be choking them. It's very uncomfortable if you use the proper shoulder pressure, but have your partners adjust it to max that technique out, and be sure that you're using your weight to concentrate on your opponent's neck. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this lesson.
Ow. Did you add something to that one? No. You're right here the whole time. My throat was like.
Here, Hodger has secured the half guard position. He's swept from his own half guard and ended in a tight half guard position. He already has good shoulder pressure, and his bicep is well connected with his opponent's carotid artery. Right now, he reached towards the camera and then changed the angle to back underneath his armpit. And he reached towards the camera so his bicep could be even more connected with his opponent's carotid artery. Now he's worked and fed the gi to his shoulder pressuring arm. He'll continually throughout this pass work to adjust that shoulder pressure to get it in tight. From this position here, Hodger's opponent has an underhook with his right arm. It's not really doing much offensively for him, but it's preventing Hodger from going to his priority number 1 guard pass, which is his head underneath his opponent's arm and on the ground. So he'll drop his hips and go to his priority number 3 guard pass. And he senses that his opponent eases up on that underhook a little bit and senses an opportunity to swivel his head underneath that arm and using his left arm as a tool to help him there. Now he assumes leg position number 1, his right leg high in the mount, his left leg straight, and then his opponent opens and he just steps over. He uses patience a lot to pass and waits for his opponents to defeat themselves sometimes. Right here, Hodger has already beaten on Marcelo the half butterfly guard and driven in tight to the half guard position. Notice Hodger already has some great shoulder pressure with his bicep connected with his opponent's carotid artery. He's already fed the gi underneath. From this position, Hodger's going to look to feed his head under his opponent's armpit. He uses his left arm as a tool and circles it underneath, seen here. Now he would assume leg position number 1, except Marcelo's left arm right there is going to be harassing Hodger's leg underneath it. So he fights the shoulder pressure right there and Hodger assumes leg position number 1. In leg position number 1, it's an option to use the top of your foot on your opponent's quadricep, as Hodger is doing here. This can help with the pass and help to go directly to the mounted position as opposed to the quarter guard. From this position, Hodger senses, instead of going to the quarter guard, that he can backstep because Marcelo briefly opens his guard, seen here. In this next 2010 match, Hodger has undergone every poor position that you could go through from the top half guard position. We're well into the match at this point, so let's go over some counters and analyze how he gets in tight. From this position, his opponent right there threatens to come on top, so Hodger with his left arm will grab his opponent's left shin, preventing him from coming on top. Now from this position, Hodger needs to get in tight. So you're going to see his right arm come underneath his opponent's neck. He's going to work for it here shortly. Right there. Now he's going to drive his weight forward and flirt with triangling his legs. Now watch his right arm. His right arm is going to get shoulder pressure right there. That was the key step that happened. That was the beginning of the end for his opponent. Now he's going to work to feed the gi underneath. His opponent still has an underhook on his leg, but it means very little when your shoulder pressure is so great. From this position, he triangles his legs to get rid of that underhooking arm, and then will drive his weight forward. From this position, Hodger always looks to get his head underneath his opponent's armpit, as I covered in the previous analysis. However, he just can't get it in this position. So what he'll do is assume leg position number 2 and go do his priority number 2 guard pass. With shoulder pressure and leaning the weight, he's going to drive into the quarter guard position. And once in the quarter guard position, he's going to look to secure the mount. Here, he pushes with his left arm and drives into the quarter guard. Picks up his opponent's arm and will look to pass. In this last match here, Hodger's already secured against Terere his priority pass number 1. He has okay shoulder pressure, not as good as in some of the other matches, and his head is underneath. He's assumed leg position number 1, and in this case, he's also going to use his right leg, his foot on top of his opponent's quadricep to help here. And he's going to move directly to the mounted position, seen here.